My sister called me too broke to be her maid of honor, so I skipped her wedding, and 6 months later she was begging me for a job. Imagine being told by your own sister, the one you've held while she cried over exes, the one you let steal your clothes, steal your Spotify account, steal your eyeliner, that you're too broke to be her maid of honor. Not, hey, I know things are tight, let's talk about it. Just a full-blown, straight-faced, casually condescending. It's okay, you don't have to be in the bridal party. I know money's a thing for you. I wish I was joking. So yeah, this story is about how I went from being her backup therapist/emergency Uber driver to not even being invited to her bridal shower. But don't worry, because the plot twists. Oh, it twists so hard she ends up sitting in my office, literal corporate-style office, asking if we're hiring. Let me rewind. I'm 29. My sister Elise is 26. We're close in age, but never really close in the way that, like, best friend sisters are. You know those girls who post throwback pics every year with captions like, my twin soul in a different womb? Yeah, that was never us. We were more like allies. Elise was always the golden child. Blonde, bubbly, cheer captain energy. I was more sarcastic, quiet, always in the library or glued to a laptop. We were just wired different. But I loved her. I did. I cheered when she got into her dream university. I cried when she almost didn't graduate cause of a super messy breakup. I even loaned her money once, back when I was working part-time and she needed help with rent after moving in with a guy who ghosted her. She said she'd pay me back the second she got her life together. Spoiler alert, she never did. Till I always showed up. Because that's what you do, right? Family's family. Anyway, fast forward to last year. I was in a weird place. My startup had just gone under, thanks to some VC drama I do not have the emotional bandwidth to unpack here, and I was picking up freelance gigs while trying to rebuild my savings. I wasn't broke, but like, I was meal prepping rice and eggs broke, canceling subscriptions broke, politely ignoring Zara sales broke. So when Elise called me to catch up, I was actually happy to hear from her. She'd just gotten engaged to this guy, Trevor, very beige energy but fine, and I figured she wanted to tell me about the wedding. She was like, so, we're thinking spring, vineyard vibes, rustic glam, you know? And I was genuinely happy for her. I was like, that sounds beautiful. Let me know what you need help with. And she pauses. Full silence. Then goes, actually, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. Cue my stomach doing a weird little flip. She goes, I know things have been hard for you financially, and I just don't want you to feel obligated or stressed out trying to keep up with bridesmaid stuff. Like the dress, the trip, the gifts, the hair, the makeup, it adds up. First, I thought she was being kind. Like, looking out for me. So I said, thanks for being thoughtful, but I want to be there for you. I'll figure it out. And she just blinks at me, dead serious, and goes, I think it's better if you just come as a guest. That way it's less pressure and you won't feel like you're falling behind the others. Falling behind the others. She really said that to my face. And I just sat there, blinking back, feeling this hot wave of shame rise up in my chest. 'Cause yeah, my friends were doing well. My ex-roommate had just bought a house. My college friend just got promoted at Google. And here I was, Venmo requesting roommates for electric bills. I said, so you're cutting me out of the bridal party 'cause I'm not rich enough? She laughs and goes, no. Don't be dramatic. Just, this day is really important to me and I need everyone involved to be all in. Financially, emotionally, you know. I swear I almost choked. Like, was this a wedding or an audition for Shark Tank? So I told her, got it. Message received. And she goes, you're not mad, right? I just didn't want things to be awkward later. I smiled. I actually smiled and said, of course. No worries. But inside, I was burning. Like slow simmer style. I went home and just sat there on the floor of my room. Not even the bed, the floor. 'Cause something about it made the humiliation feel grounded, like I was letting the shame soak into the carpet or something. And here's where it got worse. I wasn't even invited to the bachelorette party. Yeah, my own sister flew to Miami with 5 other girls, partied in a pink Airbnb, posted group pics in matching swimsuits with captions like ride or die, and I wasn't in a single shot. Didn't even get a text. And I know what you're thinking. Why didn't you just confront her? I wish I could say I was bold and dramatic. But I wasn't. I just ghosted the whole thing. Didn't ask for the wedding date. Didn't even check the registry. I let her have her perfect little rustic glam fantasy without me. And you know what? For the first time in years, I felt free. Like I wasn't performing big sister for someone who only saw me as useful when I was saving her from her own mess. But of course, the universe wasn't done yet. 'Cause 6 months later, Elise walks into my new office. As in, the company I built, the startup I relaunched, the one that finally got funded. And she's holding a sad little portfolio and wearing the fakest humble smile I've ever seen. She sits down and goes, hey sis, I heard you're hiring. Before I keep going, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop it in the comments below. And if stories about proving people wrong and taking your power back speak to you, hit that like button and consider subscribing so you never miss the next one. Thanks for being here. Let's keep going. So yeah, she really said that. Hey sis, I heard you're hiring. I didn't even answer right away. I just blinked at her for a second like I'd been slapped with a fish. Because for a split moment, I actually thought she was kidding. Like it was some kind of weird peace offering prank after the wedding drama. But no, she was dead serious. I wish I could say I hit her with some legendary clapback like, oh, now you remember we're related? But I didn't. I just leaned back in my chair and said the most neutral, HR-friendly version of what I was feeling. I didn't know you were looking. She tried to laugh it off. Yeah, things have been a little crazy since the wedding. Let me break it down for you. Apparently, Trevor, her beige husband, had lost his job 2 months after the wedding. Something about a merger and him being redundant. She told me with this helpless little laugh, like it was a punchline. We were literally on our honeymoon when he got the call, and at first they thought they could coast. She was doing some influencer-light stuff on Instagram and he had severance. But the market wasn't cute, the algorithm hated her lately and wedding debt? Bro, it doesn't care about your grid aesthetic. So, like, she goes, twirling a strand of hair, I figured it's time to get serious. I swear, it took everything in me not to raise my eyebrow, because Elise getting serious was something I hadn't seen since her high school AP Lit class where she cried because Pride and Prejudice was too many words. She slides over this resume. And y'all, when I say resume, I mean Canva template with pink cursive headers and a quote at the top that said, "Passion fuels purpose." Like this was a lifestyle blog, not an actual job interview. Now I run a small but solid media startup. We do editorial branding, brand voice strategy, and podcast production. Snitch but growing. And after a tough couple years of freelancing, pitching, and living on oat milk and leftover hummus, I had just secured a round of seed funding and finally expanded to a team of 6. We were hiring a junior content strategist. Entry level. Real work. Real deadlines. Not influencer assistant vibes. I asked her, so what kind of role are you thinking? She perked up. Oh, the content thing sounds fun. I love social media. I mean, I've been curating a brand for years. I just need a foot in the door, you know? Girl, she said, curating a brand. As in, using Paris filter and reposting Pinterest quotes about girl bossing your way to brunch. I asked her a few basic questions. Stuff like, have you ever used Notion? Do you know what a content calendar is? Can you write a 5-paragraph blog post without ChatGPT doing it for you? She kept smiling though, like she thought charm could fill in the resume gaps. And then, because apparently she had zero self-awareness, she leaned in and goes, honestly, I figured you'd say yes. I mean, I'm family. And y'all, that's when I actually laughed. Because the same girl who looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't financially good enough to stand next to her in a matching dress now wanted a job from me? I didn't say anything rude. I just smiled and said, well, I appreciate you reaching out. We're interviewing this week, so I'll definitely keep you in the loop. She blinked. Like that wasn't the script she was expecting. I could tell she thought I'd just hand it to her. Like I'd be flattered or something. But the truth is, I had moved on. See, the 6 months after her wedding had been hard. I threw myself into my business like it was therapy. I barely slept. I networked like a maniac. I pitched brands while eating pizza at midnight. And yeah, I cried a few times. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about survival. But somewhere in that chaos, I built something that was mine. No handouts. No daddy's credit card energy. Just grit and Google Docs. And now, the same girl who once made me feel less than for struggling, she wanted in. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't petty. But I also wasn't stupid. So I filed her resume under maybe and told her we'd be in touch. After she left, my assistant, Emily, walked into my office holding her own coffee and goes, was that the sister? I nodded. Emily, bless her bold Gen Z soul, didn't even blink. She just said, so, are we ghosting or politely declining? I laughed and said, let's see how she follows up. And sure enough, 2 days later, Elise sent me an email with the subject line, manifesting this opportunity. I can't make this up. But what happened next? That's where the story really spirals. Because spoiler, Elise didn't give up. And the more desperate she got, the messier it became. Okay, so let's get into what happened after that email. Because I thought that was the end of it. Like, cute attempt, not a fit, thanks for stopping by. But that email was just the beginning of what I now call the Great Sister spin cycle. You know, where she starts nice, gets weird, goes emotional, then somehow makes herself the victim of her own choices. So 2 days after the email, she texts me. Not calls. Not even a follow-up message on LinkedIn or something professional. Just a casual, hey babe, just checking in on the job stuff. Hope your week's not too crazy. Babe. I hadn't been babe to her since I was spotting her at Forever 21 dressing rooms in high school. So I left it on read. I know cold, but I wasn't about to have this entire thing play out over texts and emojis. If she was serious, she'd act like it. Instead, she doubled down. Next morning, I open Instagram and see she's posted a story, a picture of a latte with the caption, manifesting career moves. Grateful for powerful women in my life who open doors #blessed. I was tagged. I had to zoom in and squint to be sure, but yep, tiny faint back of the tagless tag. There I was, along with 3 other people who have probably never met her in their lives. I'm sitting at my desk like, what is this PR campaign? That same day, Emily drops by my desk with a smirk and goes, your sister just sent a thank you box to the front desk. Chocolate truffles and a card that says, let me prove myself. Bro, I hadn't even interviewed her. She wasn't in the final candidate pool. She hadn't even submitted a writing sample, which was clearly listed in the job post. But I'm now the proud owner of 12 overpriced truffles and an energy that screams, hire me because I'm cute and desperate. I start getting slightly uncomfortable, because now I'm like, does she really want the job or does she want to look like she has the job? There's a difference. And if you've ever had a sibling who lives more for the optics than the effort, you know exactly what I mean. Elise didn't want to work. She wanted to be able to say she worked at her big sister's startup. She wanted the look of being connected, professional, on the rise. She wanted the photo of herself holding a laptop with a latte captioned, "Startup Life." But the reality? She had no clue what the job was. The straw that finally broke the designer gift-wrapped camel's back? She showed up. Again. This time in full hair and makeup in one of those fake business chic outfits like a blazer over a crop top, but no notebook, no laptop, no resume. Just vibes. She waltzes in like it's the hills. Entrepreneur edition, hugs my assistant, waves at my coworkers, and straight up says to me, "I was in the area and thought I'd shadow you for the day." Shadow me. Without asking. I don't even know how I kept a straight face. I pulled her into a side room and said, "Elise, I love you, but this is not how any of this works." And she gives me this hurt puppy look and goes, "I thought you'd be proud of me for taking initiative. I just want to learn, to be around strong women doing cool things." I said, "You still haven't submitted a writing sample. You haven't followed the application process. And showing up randomly is not taking initiative. It's interrupting." She blinked. Like she had never in her life been told no in a serious tone. I could see the shift happen right there, from sugary sweet sister to passive-aggressive shade machine. She steps back and says, "Wow, okay, I guess I know where I stand." I go, "It's not about where you stand, it's about what you're bringing to the table. You want to be here? Bring the work." Then I left the room. I had actual deadlines. She stormed out without saying goodbye. And later that night, she unfollowed me on Instagram. Yes, fully adult, fully married, 26-year-old woman unfollowed me like we were 15 and I didn't sit next to her at lunch. I didn't reach out. I didn't take the bait. But then she called our mom, and that's when things escalated. 'Cause of course my mom got involved. And of course she had opinions. So let's talk about my mom for a second. Because when Elise called her, I knew exactly how this was about to play out. My mom is one of those people who talks like she's always on the verge of hosting a Facebook Live, the type, obsessed with keeping the family peace, but somehow always manages to stir the pot more than anyone else in the room. She calls me the next morning, all cheery at first. "Hey, sweetie. Just checking in. How's work? Are you sleeping enough? You know I worry about you burning out." Which was code for, "I've been briefed by Elise and I'm about to guilt trip you." So I played along. "Work's great, actually. Busy but exciting." And then she drops it. "Well, Elise said she popped by your office and that you weren't exactly welcoming." I took a breath. Mom, she showed up uninvited. We were in the middle of interviews. She hasn't submitted the basic requirements. This isn't personal, it's a job. I just don't want you two to drift apart over something silly. She's trying, honey. She's making an effort. Bro, she's making an effort? By what? Showing up to my workplace like it's her boyfriend's football practice. Sending chocolates like she's applying for The Bachelor? I said, I've bent over backwards for her my whole life. She made it very clear that my financial situation disqualified me from her wedding. But now I have something she wants. Suddenly I'm Sister of the Year again? That's not effort. That's convenience. Silence. Then the classic mom move. Well, you do have more experience. Maybe this is a chance to mentor her. She looks up to you, Y'all, if she looked up to me, she wouldn't have ghosted me during her entire wedding process and made me feel like a burden just for not being able to drop $1,200 on custom bridesmaid gowns and a luxury retreat in Tulum. I said, Mom, if she wants mentorship, she can start by respecting the application process like every other adult. This isn't a favor, it's a professional role. And then boom, the tears. Okay. I just don't want my girls fighting. I can't stand it. Your grandmother would be so upset if she saw you two like this. And just like that, she played the ghost of guilt moss past. I had to end the call before I lost it. I just said, I love you, but I need to get back to work. She goes, of course you do. You always put work first. Click. And that's when I realized, no matter how far I'd come, to them I was still the serious one. The cold one. The workhorse. The one who could take the hit, so why not just take it? Meanwhile, Elise was the baby. The glittery one. The one who cried at gift openings and made puppy eyes at brunch to get someone else to cover the check. She played vulnerable like it was her career. So I let it simmer. I stopped engaging. I kept things professional. Elise didn't text again. She went silent for a while. And I got back to living. Things were moving at the company. We signed 2 new clients, hired a sharp junior strategist who literally crushed the interview process and even got a mention in a niche business podcast that I grew up listening to. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't chasing stability. I had built it. Then, around late November, right before the holidays, I'm scrolling Instagram and I see Elise's story. It's a selfie. Full glam. Coffee cup in hand. Caption says, when your dream job ghosts you, but you're still that girl, #next chapter. And I knew that was about me. She never said my name. But come on. Dream job. Ghosting. After the whole mini-drama. And suddenly I was furious. Because she wasn't just ignoring the facts, she was flipping the narrative. Making it sound like I had wronged her. Like she was just an innocent go-getter crushed by the big mean corporate sister. But I stayed quiet because I had bigger things to focus on. Then the layoffs happened. Trevor's new job let him go. Their apartment lease was ending. And Elise? She reached back out. Just one message. I know things have been weird. I really need a job, even part-time. Please let me know if there's anything at all. And that was the moment I felt the shift. She didn't need a job 6 months ago. She needed validation. She needed a photo op, a little power boost to help her feel like she was still on top of the world. But now she actually needed work. She needed income. And she was coming to the sister she said wasn't good enough to stand next to her. That's when I realized this wasn't about the wedding anymore. This was about every time I'd swallowed my pride, smiled through being treated like the lesser one, and still showed up for her. And now the roles had flipped. So yeah, when I got that message from Elise, it didn't feel like a win. This time, she wasn't performing. And I'll admit, there was a little voice in my head going, be the bigger person. But you know what? Bigger doesn't always mean better. Bigger doesn't mean sacrificing your boundaries so someone else can feel comfortable at your expense. So I decided to respond. Carefully, respectfully, professionally. I texted back. Hey, sorry to hear things have been rough. We're not hiring at the moment, but I'm happy to pass your name along if I hear of anything that fits your skill set. Hope you and Trevor are doing okay. And she replied almost instantly. Oh, okay, thanks. And that night, I got a DM from her best friend, the one who was her maid of honor, the one who posted endless stories during Elise's bachelorette like it was the Real Housewives of Miami. The message said, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but she's been talking crap about you to anyone who'll listen. Said you're jealous and holding a grudge. Just thought you should know. And I laughed. 'Cause how do you twist you begging someone for a job into they're just jealous? But also, I wasn't surprised. Elise had always lived in this weird fantasy world where she was the main character, and everyone else was either a hater or a background extra. If things didn't go her way, the story just changed to fit her image. I didn't respond to the friend. I didn't call Elise out. I just made a decision. This was my closure. I wasn't going to be dragged back into the spin cycle. I wasn't going to keep trying to repair something that Elise only valued when she needed something. The truth is, the real betrayal wasn't her kicking me out of her wedding. It wasn't her ghosting me from the bridal party or showing up at my office unannounced. It was years of her taking me for granted. Years of pretending I didn't matter until I was useful. Years of smiling for pictures but never showing up in real life. And now, when I had something, when I built something from scratch, alone, through literal ramen noodle stress nights and silent tears in public bathrooms, she wanted to claim a piece of it like it was hers too. Nope, not anymore. About a week after that last message, she posted another vague, inspirational Instagram quote. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hold you back the most. Protect your peace. And you know what? I didn't feel triggered. I just shook my head and went back to finishing the pitch deck I was working on, one that ended up landing a contract worth more than her entire wedding budget. Plot twist. The client we landed used to work with Trevor's former company. Full circle, baby. I got to finally let go of the guilt I carried for not being the kind of sister Elise wanted me to be, the one who would always bend, break, and smile through it. I don't hate her. I don't wish her harm. I just don't wish to keep playing this role. She wrote me off as too broke to be seen beside her. But in the end, I was the one she came crawling to. So you'd think after all that, the ghosting, the job rejection, the vague shade Instagram quotes, Elise would back off for good. She didn't. Because a few months later, she came back again. But not for a job. This time, she needed a place to live. Yeah, let that sit for a second. I had just gotten back from a weekend retreat my team and I had done in the mountains. Very Pinterest vibes, whiteboard strategy sessions mixed with hot chocolate and bad karaoke. I was riding this creative high, feeling like a real CEO for once. I check my phone Sunday night and see a message from Elise. No context. No greeting. Just, hey, can I call you? It's kind of important. Now, after everything, I could have ignored it. But I didn't. So I called. She picked up on the first ring, voice tight like she'd been crying. Hey, so, Trevor and I are going through some stuff. Oh boy. Apparently, they'd separated. Temporarily. But also, maybe not. She said the stress from the layoffs changed him, and they were constantly fighting. She moved out a week ago and had been staying at a friend's apartment. But that friend's sister was flying in and needed the couch. So I was wondering, she said, voice cracking for effect, if maybe I could crash with you for a bit, just until I figure things out. And y'all, I had so many thoughts in that moment. Like, you didn't want me in your bridal party, but now you want me to be your crash pad? You talked trash about me online, but now my guest room is suddenly good enough? You treated me like a second-tier relative, and now I'm supposed to play Florence Nightingale with a coffee bar? But what I actually said was, for how long? And she goes, just a couple weeks. Tops. That phrase? A couple weeks? It's always a lie. Every couch crasher in the history of ever has said a couple weeks right before staying until the seasons change. I told her, let me think about it and call you tomorrow. I needed space. Not just physically, emotionally. Because part of me wanted to help. Despite everything, I'm not heartless. I've slept on friends' couches. I've cried in people's bathtubs. I get what it feels like to be untethered. But the other part of me, the older sister part that got used and discarded, she was screaming, don't do it. So I called one of my closest friends, Kira. She's basically my chosen sister at this point, and she doesn't sugarcoat anything. I gave her the whole rundown and she just said, "Let me get this straight. She excluded you from her wedding, tried to leverage your business without doing any work, and then bad-mouthed you when you didn't hand her a job? And now she wants a bed and free therapy?" I was like, "Yeah, that's the gist." She goes, "Girl, that is not a sister in crisis. That is a manipulator testing your boundaries." Oof. Read me like a BuzzFeed quiz. So I made a decision. The next day I texted Elise. "Hey, I thought about it. I can't offer a place to stay, but I'm happy to help you find a short-term rental or put you in touch with someone who knows local listings." And well, she lost it. I mean, full meltdown mode. She emailed. Like a formal, dramatic email, like we were in a custody battle over a dog or something. The subject line? Disappointed. The body of the email. "I honestly thought we were moving forward, but clearly you're still holding things over my head. I don't know what I ever did to deserve being iced out like this. I wouldn't have done this to you." Oh, really? She literally did this to me. Except instead of needing a place to crash, I just wanted to stand next to her while she threw a bouquet. I didn't respond. I archived it, closed my laptop, and went for a walk. I bought myself overpriced matcha and took the scenic route home. And that night, while eating takeout on my couch in my quiet, peaceful apartment, I thought, this is it. This is what emotional freedom feels like. Because I wasn't consumed with guilt. I wasn't crying or questioning myself. I wasn't spiraling over, should I have helped? I just felt peace. And that was worth more than any petty revenge or mic drop comeback ever could have given me. Still, the story doesn't quite end there. Because a few weeks later, plot twist incoming, Elise showed up again. But this time, it wasn't just her. Okay, so picture this. It's a rainy Thursday. I'm home early from work because one of our clients canceled a Zoom call last minute and I was like, great, I'm gonna do self-care. Meaning pizza, sweatpants, and mindless Netflix. I'm 2 slices deep and halfway through a terrible dating show when there's a knock at the door. Now, for context, I live in a building with a security code. People don't just show up. You have to be buzzed in. So already I'm like, weird. I wasn't expecting anyone. I check the peephole. And y'all, it's Elise. But she's not alone. Standing next to her, holding a soggy paper bag and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else on earth, was Trevor, her husband. Husband? Separated husband? Unclear at this point. I didn't open the door right away. I stood there for a good 10 seconds just trying to process what my eyeballs were witnessing. Because not once, not even in my most dramatic sister fantasy flashbacks, did I imagine her dragging her half-sulking man-child to my actual front door. Finally, I opened it. She smiled like this was normal. Like this was fine. "Hey," she said as if we were catching up at Trader Joe's. "I know it's a surprise, sorry. I figured texting might be awkward." Bro, texting would have been less awkward than showing up with the man who once joked that I was more accountant than woman when I told them they should maybe dial back their wedding budget. I raised an eyebrow. What's going on? Elise glanced at Trevor like he was her emotional support animal and then back at me. We're working through stuff," she said. "We're in counseling now and our therapist suggested we do something called a repair mission." I blinked. What now?" Trevor mumbled. "It's like making amends to people we've hurt." I looked between them like they were aliens. "Wet, uncomfortable aliens," Elise said, "and I know I've hurt you. We both have. And I didn't want to leave things like that. I thought maybe if we came in person it would show that we're serious. I wanted to close the door and slide down it like I was in a mid-2000s rom-com. But mostly, I wanted to know what they wanted. So I asked, point blank, "Are you here to apologize or are you here because you need something?" That question landed like a punch. Elise's face cracked for just a second, like she hadn't expected to be called out in the middle of her PR campaign. Trevor cleared his throat and looked at the floor. And then Elise finally said it. "I was hoping we could stay with you. Just for a couple nights. We're doing counseling in the city and it's just, rent is tight. And I didn't want to go back to Mom's." There it was. The real reason. I folded my arms. "So this isn't just a repair mission. It's a favor." She started to backpedal. "No. I mean, yes, but like, I didn't want it to seem transactional." I said, "It is. You want something." Again. Silence. Trevor finally spoke. "Look, I know we weren't great to you. And I know I've been kind of a jerk. But we're trying. We're serious about fixing things." And you know what? I actually believed him. He looked sincere. Uncomfortable. Elise? Still acting like this was a Hallmark movie with a third-act redemption arc. I took a breath and said, "I've already said no, Elise. I said I couldn't offer you a place to stay. That hasn't changed." Her jaw tightened. "So you're just gonna leave us out in the rain?" I tilted my head. "You're not out in the rain. You're literally in a dry car downstairs. I can see it from my window." Trevor stifled a laugh, an actual laugh, which only made Elise more annoyed. "Whatever," she snapped. "I guess some people don't believe in forgiveness." And that's when I really snapped. I said, "No, Elise. I believe in forgiveness. I also believe in patterns. And you? You only show up when you're down bad. You only remember I exist when you need something. And then you spin it like I'm the one being cold when I finally say no." She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "You didn't want me in your wedding. Cool. You didn't want me around your friends. Fine. You made jokes about me being too intense and too serious. But now that your picture-perfect life cracked a little, Suddenly I'm good enough to save the day. I took a step forward and looked her dead in the eye. I'm not your safety net, Elise. I'm not your backup plan. I'm your sister. And if you ever want to rebuild a real relationship with me, it starts with respecting my boundaries, not testing them. Trevor looked like he wanted to evaporate. Elise? She just nodded. Okay, she whispered. She turned around, Trevor followed, and they left. And finally, felt the door shut on something so much bigger than just this moment. So I wish I could say that was the end of it. That after the whole rainy doorstep scene, Elise just faded into the background, finally got her life together, and stopped treating me like the emotional emergency exit whenever hers caught fire. But 2 weeks later, she showed up at my office. Again. Now before you scream, yes, this time she actually emailed first. Subject line. I owe you one last conversation. I stared at it for a solid minute. First I thought, delete it and move on. But something in the wording felt different. It didn't have that fake positive influencer tone. It didn't sound like a trap. It sounded tired. Like she'd finally run out of spin. So I said, okay, lunch. Public place and no surprises. We met at this little cafe near my office. She showed up on time, no glam, no Trevor, no attempt to win me over with charm or some Pinterest-glazed apology. Just her, a hoodie, and eyes that looked like she hadn't slept in 3 days. We ordered. Sat down. Silence for a bit. And then she spoke. I was awful to you. I didn't say anything. I wanted her to keep going. I let my pride run the show. The wedding stuff. I made it about appearances. I knew you were struggling, and instead of being a good sister, I was embarrassed. Still quiet. I didn't want anyone to know my big sister wasn't, like, crushing it. 'Cause it made me feel less successful, less shiny. So I pushed you away. I stared at my tea like it was going to tell me how to feel. She kept talking. And then when you got successful, it messed with me. I was spiraling and seeing you win made me feel small. But that wasn't your fault. I finally looked up. So why come to my door again? Why keep pushing? She sighed. Because I was desperate. And I think a part of me thought if you helped me, it meant you still loved me. There it was. The root. I took a slow breath and said, I do love you. I just don't trust you. And her face crumpled just a little. That's fair, she whispered. We sat in silence for a bit, just sipping our drinks while the world buzzed around us, couples chatting, baristas yelling names, background jazz playing from someone's Spotify. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out something that made me go still. It was a notebook. My notebook. The one I used to carry everywhere in college. I blinked. Where did you get that? She smiled a little. I stole it. Sophomore year. I found it in the back seat of Mom's car and meant to return it, but I kept it. I used to read it when I missed you. I opened it. Inside were sketches, startup ideas, random thoughts I'd scribbled at age 19 about wanting to make something that mattered. She said, I used to think you were boring. But now, I think you were just focused. And I didn't understand that. That was when I felt something shift. I nodded slowly. Thanks for bringing this back. She looked at me and asked, is there any way back? Like, not to how it was, but something better? I paused, then said maybe. But it starts slow. And it starts with you, not me. I'm not going to drag us towards something you won't carry. She nodded. Okay. We didn't hug. There was no grand TV movie resolution. But there was something real. A first brick laid. We split the bill. She walked away with her hands in her pockets and a little less weight on her shoulders. I walked back to my office feeling like I just exhaled something I didn't realize I'd been holding in for years. Final update, 6 months later. Elise got a job. Not from me. From herself. She started assisting a freelance branding consultant, the kind of work she once thought was just Canva and vibes, but now realizes is actual hustle. She even took some online writing courses. We're not besties, but we talk. About real things. And when she visited my new apartment last week for dinner, she showed up on time, brought dessert, and washed her plate. No assumptions. No theatrics. Just a girl trying. And me? I'm good. I've got a solid team, real peace, and boundaries I no longer feel bad enforcing. Took a lot to get here. But now, I'm finally living a life where being someone's sister doesn't mean being their safety net. It means being a person with my own worth. Thanks for listening. I'm off to reread that old notebook I forgot I ever wrote in. Turns out 19-year-old me knew where she was going all along. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and consider subscribing. And if you've had a similar experience, I'd really love to hear it down in the comments. We're stronger when we share. Take care.